Good morning and welcome to this morning's episode of The Amateur in the Morning. I am your host, the Forex Amateur. Today is the 3rd of December. Oh, wow. It's the 3rd of December. It's a beautiful Thursday morning out here in Durban, South Africa. As you know, on these episodes, just to sort of set the scene, I like to basically look at the synthetic indices market and the dollar index and Nasdaq equity market as of recent. So basically, the purpose of this is for me to just sort of break down my view on the markets for today to help guide in terms of how to identify your daily bias. So just talking about that, let me just throw in my little disclaimer. Remember, I'm not qualified to offer financial, investment, or trading advice. Everything I speak about on these episodes is purely my own opinion. Trades that I take is trades that I'm taking with cash that I am willing to risk. I do not recommend any specific trade or action. If you do take any trades, you need to do it with cash that you're willing to risk, as well as based on analysis that you've done, because the truth is you could lose your entire investment. Let's get straight into it and talk about the volatility 50. But before I break that down, let me just mention something real quick. So I've actually reduced my watch list, right, to about five of the indices that I look at on a regular basis. And the reason for that is because, firstly, the other charts were just extremely boring, um, moving really slowly. I didn't really feel that excitement in terms of trading those charts. And honestly, I was just keeping it on my watch list to share it on these episodes on a daily basis. But I've decided to reduce that since. So I've reduced it to about five indices, of which two are indices that I do share on these episodes regularly. So that will be reduced to two. And that is the two that I will be speaking about on these episodes going forward. Obviously, the remainder of them is stuff that I share with my paid group members and stuff like that. So I can't really sort of give everything away on these episodes. So it will be the two indices that I will speak about, as well as the NASDAQ equity and the dollar index future going forward. And that's going to be for say about a week or two, because I will be stopping these on the 14th, right? So that means my last episode will be on the 14th of December. So let's get straight into it. Let's talk about volatility 50. And for that, let's just look at the weekly time frame real quick. Right, so volatility 50, I've been thinking about a pullback, right? So we're looking at the weekly chart. I've been thinking about a pullback into around this area here before the market does come back down and then continue back to the upside. So looking at it currently, we are still bullish on volatility 50. Looking at the daily chart, right, I've been expecting it to sort of push down a bit lower on the daily chart, but as we can see, that price is going super bullish at the moment. And it is breaking structure at this current point. So we don't really have any clean structure on the daily time frame, but we can see that we had this bullish engulfing candle. We had this indecision, and now we're going bullish again. So I've basically highlighted this level in here, and this is more or less where I am expecting to see this price come back into around this area and maybe push back down into there, like I did say, and then go all the way back to the upside. Now, this pullback from here is dependent. It could go all the way back down and maybe go below these lows again, right? And then come back above, something to that effect, and then push up from around there. So that's what I am currently looking at the moment. Let's just drop down to the H4 chart and let's look at what it's doing on H4. So looking at H4, we can see that we've had this push to the downside there. We can see on the weekly chart and daily chart as well. This push to the downside creating this new low, price creating this high, creating a higher low, creating a higher high, higher low, and then failing to create a higher high, then breaking this previous low in here, right? So let me just grab an arrow so you can see where I'm pointing. So we broke this low to the downside with this, pulled back, created a lower high, and failed to continue back to the downside. So looking at this at the moment, I'm actually still looking for possible selling opportunities if we do see them form very clearly. But as the market does look at the moment, I'm expecting it to most likely just go bullish from here, come back and retest into around this broken structure that we've got here. And then from there, we'll most likely see if this market does want to push back to the downside or if it does come back into around this area. Right now, it is very unclear at the moment, if I'm being frank. I know I am Brian, but if I'm being frank, it's very unclear at the moment. So I'm not really rendering any sort of decisions on this market at this point. But looking at it at the moment, it is short-term bullish, so it would be very wise to look for buys and perhaps target back into this broken structure right in here. It's a very short buy, right? If it does break about that structure in there, then I would expect to see it perhaps come and react to around this level in here per se, right? So that is what I'm going to be looking at. And obviously, if it does break above there, then we'll target this area in here. So it is a big iffy at the moment. But overall, it does look bullish on the higher time frame back into that weekly zone that I did mark right in here. Show this on the daily chart. Or it is showing on the daily. Oh, this thing is annoying. Daily chart. Yeah, so back into this area at minimum, there's a good target right now, and then push back to the downside. So even looking at the weekly right now, sorry, the 4 hour back into this area here, it's a good target, and then we'll look at to see what it does from that point. Let's look at the volatility 75. This as well, looking at the weekly chart, I've been speaking about volatility 75 coming back about this previous high quite a while now, actually, ever since it left this level. I've been speaking about it possibly coming back into this area here. And I should have actually held some of the buys that I was holding from down in here. But unfortunately, I didn't, right? I am still, finding my way in terms of swing trading. I've been a scalper for most of the year, transitioned into day trading. And since I am doing this full time at the moment, I realized why not just do swing trading, so I spend much less time in front of my laptop. Obviously, I haven't done that yet because I still spend about 10 hours a day in front of my laptop. But that's, it's a journey right now. One thing I've picked up this year and one thing I've learned this year is not to rush the progress, right? Progress happens organically, right? So we need to allow the progress to happen organically and not sort of force what you want out of it. Because the truth is, in this market, nobody controls what happens. When I say nobody, I'm talking about us little guys. But what we can control is the amount of effort that we put in, and then we allow the progress to happen organically, right? So by next year, by early next year, I'm looking to be very consistent in terms of my swing trading, right? Because I am able to project in advance for a good couple of weeks, couple of months in most instances. It's just the matter of getting in on those trades and holding them for that long period of time. That has been my struggle up until this point, but I am consistently working on that. So looking at this, sorry about that. We were looking at this high to be broken. Right now, we can see price has tested into this high, so we'll most likely get a small bearish impulse up here, right? Because this is a retail double top. And once we get that small impulse, then I'll expect it to come back above this high and then push back down to around this area in here, right? Small wicks perhaps into the downside to come and complete this sort of head and shoulders pattern that's forming in here, which you'll see much clearer when we get down into the daily time frame, and then go up from there. So that's that on the weekly time frame. Let's have a look at the daily so we can speak a bit more in detail about this. Looking at the daily, we can see, okay, so this is that head and shoulders pattern that I was speaking about on the weekly, right? So we can see it much clearer here on the daily. Right? We can see that we have not come back to form the shoulder. Instead, the market just continued back to the upside. Now that tells us that there is a likelihood that we'll see the market come back to this area in here, right? And then continue back, perhaps come back to retest this area and push down, or retest and go back to the upside, which is much more likely, right? Because we're still super bullish. There's still a lot of upside opportunity. If you look at this on the monthly time frame, there is still a lot of upside opportunity on this market, right? Came back, we created this high, Yeah, so there's a lot of upside opportunity on the weekly. Sorry, not on the weekly, up into this area here is where I've been expecting it. So it's actually very likely for us to see this market just continue back up into that area before it comes back down. Anything can happen at this point because this market is super, super bullish in the fact that we did not come back after the structure break that we see here. We did not come back to form that right shoulder before going up. So it's anybody's game at the moment. Looking at the daily chart, I'd say just sort of stick to buys at this point. Any clear onset buys, you need to be able to be taking those. But other than that, I'm just going to be sitting on my hands until I get a clear indication of which direction this market is going. But I have been looking for sells from this zone. So if I see sells for today, I'll most likely take them. you know, um, yeah, I'll most likely take them. So for that, let's move on to the uh, dollar index. Okay, on the dollar index. Now, yesterday I did speak about a chance. There is a chance that the market could come back into this yellow block over here on the monthly time frame, right? Because we can see that the dollar is super bearish at the moment, super bearish. Let's drop down to the weekly time frame. Looking at the weekly, you can see that this is that area that I was speaking about on the monthly, and I did say that there is a likelihood that we could see that coming all the way down into there before we see anything happening, right? With that being said, on the daily time frame yesterday, I did speak about um, this sort of level in here, and I did say that if we get yesterday's candle closing bullish back in the range of this candle, then we could look for buys back to the upside. But unfortunately, as you can see, that is not happening. So it's like, oh no, this market is just going to keep going down, right? Next target is around 90.0, right? The 90 level, that's the next target that I'll be looking at for buying opportunities, if anything, right? So looking at this market, it's still super bearish at the moment. Let's just look at the 4 hour right now and see what we've got on here. Right, we can see in injections of bullishness, right? So this is institutional buying right in here that's happening, right? So there is a bit of intention for this market to go back up, right? Because somebody is buying in here, right? In the middle of this bearishness, somebody is buying in here, right? So placing small buy orders in there. So that is telling me that there is a likelihood that this market could shoot back to the upside. So I'll be watching the weekly time frame right now, right, to see how the weekly candle closes. And if the weekly candle still closes bearish to the downside, then I'll expect next week to be bearish again into around this area in here. And then perhaps over the festive season or just after the festive season, the dollar might recover. That would be a very, very convenient time for it to recover, by the way. Looking at the NASDAQ, I did speak about the NASDAQ yesterday, and let's just come down to the 4 hour charts. I can show you what I was looking at yesterday. Daily is not really necessary right now. As long as the, the dollar index remains bearish, there's a huge probability that the NASDAQ might remain bullish, right? So I did mark up this area here as a broken structure yesterday. So I did say that this structure right here was broken. Just grab my annotator. Did say that this structure right here was broken. So we should look for this market to come back and retest in here and then go back to the upside. As you can see, that retest left a huge wick yesterday, right? This was to trick you into selling because what actually happened was we formed this double top right here on daily, right? So we form this sort of double top here, or you can even scrunch it up and you'll see this as a possible double top. So it depends on which one you want to look at. You could call this a double top, right? Or you could look at this as a double top and expect it to go down. So that is why that wick was left like that yesterday. This wick in here was to induce people to sell because we reached an area of so-called resistance, right? So you can see that that unfortunately did not work out very, very well for those people that were looking to sell it, unless they were scalpers, and most people that trade Nasdaq are scalpers, right? For me, I like a bit more longer range, right? Because we've been talking about buy since here, targeting this area. So this is a nice big range at the moment. I would expect it to sort of just push a little bit more to the upside for today, perhaps come and retest this trend line in here, and then we'll see it drop back down a little bit more as well. So let's just have a look at this 4-hour chart. You can see that we've got this push to the downside. So at some point, this wick needs to be filled, right? So we'll most likely come back above here, right? Above that level in there. Let me just make it black so we can remember that level. Above that area in there, perhaps touch into this trend line, and then we'll see it pull back a little bit to around, say around this area right in here. Right, so come back into around that area. Let me just remove this. Come back into around this area, perhaps even slightly lower, test this trend line before going up, right? But popping above here and then sales around there is very probable. Remember, just also keep an eye on the dollar index as well, because that will also give you a good indication. If you're seeing bullish signs on the dollar index, then there might be a bearish opportunity on the Nasdaq equity. Remember that correlation is not set in stone; it's just something that I picked up. So there could be instances where it does not work. So on that note, that's as much as I do need to share for today. So I must say it has been a pleasure as always to share with you guys, and catch up with you guys next time. That'll be tomorrow actually. Same time, same place. Until then, have a blessed and profitable trading day.